Hi, my name is Janet Ahrberg, and today is October 15th, 2009, and I am visiting with Jean Pilcher in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and this interview is for the O State Story Project of the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. Welcome, Jean.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you here for this Women of Willard, or WOW reunion as we're calling it. I'm going to start off with this interview and ask you to tell me about your early life, like where you grew up, your family, your school, your siblings, that kind of thing.
I was born in Guthrie, Oklahoma, and my parents lived on a farm. I was the second in the family. My older sister, Joanne, 2 years, 20 days older than I, and we lived on this farm until actually the Depression kind of wiped out my parents, so we went from the farm to Stillwater, from Stillwater to, we were in Ripley at one time, and then to Stillwater, and then finally to Fort Smith, Arkansas, and I started grade school in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and my father was working at a construction company there. And we lived in a little rental house, and I know times were tough. I know we didn't have health insurance that everybody worries about now. Okay. I remember having ear infections, and then the miracle of sulfa drugs. And,
okay.
Then my father was killed in an accident, I believe 1946, when I was in third grade. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, we came back to Oklahoma. And my mother started teaching school in Ripley. I had an aunt in that town, so that's why we went back to Ripley.
Okay.
And grew up and graduated from school there.
Okay.
Came to Oklahoma State.
Okay, so I know Ripley's very close to Stillwater, but did that influence you, the proximity, or can you tell us what actually influenced you to come to OSU?
Well, I thought about OU too. I was in the band, and we took trips to different schools, and I'd been to Enid, Phillips University and so forth, and I liked OU, just the physical thing, but I guess my mother went to Oklahoma A&M College. Okay. And
so that was kind of the reason, huh?
Yeah.
What year did you enroll?
1955.
Okay. What were when you landed on campus, what was your first impressions of it and the town of Stillwater in general?
Oh, pretty. I loved Willard. That group that I landed with in Willard Hall West was just great. One of them was my cousin. And my roommate the first year was from Ripley. She was in my graduating class too, so that was kind of nice. And my father lived in Stillwater, so I'd been to Stillwater a lot. He lived just west of the campus. He was a municipal judge in Stillwater. Okay. And so it wasn't like it was someplace new, but of course college was new. You're away from home and so forth.
It was a little bit different take on it at that time,
yeah.
wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Different from today, that's for sure.
Wow. So what years did you live in Willard Hall?
I lived there, I believe 3 years. I lived there my freshman, sophomore, and junior years. And when I started out, I had a job, well, both Francis and I had a job at the PBX office. We were PBX operators. We do not accept intra-dorm calls. You may not call from Willard West to Willard East.
Can you explain what that is? I do not know what a PBX is.
Okay.
What is that?
Well, this is in the old days before cell phones and all of that. When you picked up a telephone, they didn't even have dials on them in the dorms. So that would light up on this switchboard. Okay. That's what it was. And so you plug into that and you would ask them what they wanted to call. So if it was Willard, second floor west, they could call Bennett, third floor east, but they couldn't call within Willard Hall. That was just not permitted. I don't know why it wasn't permitted, but it wasn't.
So did you did you do this operation in Willard, or did you do it somewhere
No,
off
this
campus?
was over in, I want to say Whitehurst, or the top floor of the science building that was, Willard and then Whitehurst, and then I can't remember what's behind, but where Arts and Science was at that time. So it may have been
Was it a room where everybody just sat there and pulled and did this?
Yeah, and there would be several of us along the line, and I certainly was not one of the best operators. And I just did that for about, I think about 6 months until I got a job in the, well, it ended up the registrar's office, but the Office of Admissions. And that was, I can't remember the name of the man who ran admissions, but I worked with Wanda Van Hook. She was a wonderful lady. And then the gentleman who ran the Office of Admissions died in that year, and so they incorporated admissions into the registrar's office, and I worked for Gerard.
Do you remember what your pay was? How much they paid you?
Yes, it was $65 a month during the year, I believe, or maybe that was the summer. The nice thing was it was half-time in the wintertime and full-time in the summertime.
Okay.
And I was just doing high school admissions, you know, tallying up how many credits they had and so forth. I certainly wasn't the deciding factor on anything, but it was a nice clerical job.
How many hours did you work?
Half-time.
Half-time.
20 hours a week.
Wow. Was that a struggle for you to get through your job and to do classes?
No, because fortunately, since I was in the registrar's office, they managed that I could arrange my schedule. So I could have all my classes in the morning and then work in the afternoon. And some Saturday mornings, so it worked really well, and I thought that was a wonderful experience for me.
It is, yeah. So, how were you assigned to Willard, or did you specifically request to live there?
I kind of think we requested it. I don't think we requested which floor, but I believe Francis and I decided Willard would be the close, you know, it would be close to the student union. Stout was way out, you know. And I think it was Bennett, was, no, not
Murray?
Murray,
Okay.
Murray. Those were the three choices, basically.
And Frances was your roommate?
Yeah, she was my first roommate. Frances Wells was from Ripley.
Okay.
She was in my graduating class. And
Okay.
so
How big was your graduating class from Ripley?
oh my goodness, 20 people.
Oh, oh wow. Well, did they all go to college?
Oh my, no. No, a lot of them did not at all. No, I would say maybe a fourth of the class went to college.
So I may have asked you, what influenced you to come to OSU? I mean,
Well, my mother had gone to Oklahoma.
and that's what you said, okay.
And of course, like I said, we
So
went to
close,
both Cushing and Stillwater, but we came to Stillwater
okay,
a lot.
that makes sense. When you landed at Willard Hall that day, what were your first impressions of it?
Oh, well, a little bit of chaos with all the moving everything up and so forth, you know, and oh, I'm sure we will get lost, you know, a lot of worries and so forth, but yeah, it was a great experience.
So did you move your all your belongings upstairs with the elevator, or did you take the stairs?
Oh, we took the stairs. Yeah, we were pretty close to the stairs, as I recall, on the second floor. That was, you know, who's going to wait for the elevator? And of course, you didn't bring microwaves and all the things kids bring now. I mean, I think I had a suitcase. I remember I had a sewing machine.
A sewing machine?
Yeah, because my sister said it's a good idea to have a sewing machine, and she had found this place where we could buy sewing machines for $50 each. So I had a sewing machine.
Well, I bet you were pretty popular then, because
I'm sure we all used it. I don't
everybody
recall
used
that. It's still sitting down at my daughter. I gave it to my daughter-in-law, and then a part finally broke. So, but it's still sitting there waiting for a part.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard of a sewing machine. What was your room like?
We did have a little niche out for a sink, and then there were two closets. We each had a bed. Some people did stack their beds into a bunk, but we did not, because we didn't have all those loft things. I think it was Marilyn Green who always had her bed stacked, which made more room in your room. We each had a desk. I think I finally had a night table that a boyfriend made me, but that wasn't standard.
Were you able to get all your clothes in the closet?
Oh yeah, I didn't have that much.
Okay.
And I remember at one point I was the dorm, I can't remember what they called it, but they had a test file for the dorm, and I kept that in the closet on the floor, and that was like in a Foot Locker or something like that. So obviously there was plenty of room. We weren't crowded.
Was the rooms hot or cold? I mean, did the temperature shift a lot? I know they didn't have air conditioning, but
no air conditioning.
Did you freeze in the winter or anything like that?
I can remember opening the window a little bit, because once they turned the heat on, the heat was on, and it was on until they turned it off in the spring. you know, so if it was a hot day, that didn't matter. So you'd raise the window a little bit, had what we would call steam heater, you know.
Yeah. And did you have a fan when?
Oh yeah, we did have a fan.
That was a priority. You had to have that.
I think we started out on the west. Our first room, was on the west side of the hall, so that was hot in the afternoons in the fall, because you get that west sun.
Did you live in the same room the whole 3 years?
No, I shifted around and shifted roommates every year. I can't remember if Frances was there the second year or not, but Frances was my first roommate. I believe Harriet Wright was my second roommate. She'll be here for the reunion. And Susie Westfall from Perkins was my third roommate.
Cool. What was it like trying to have a personal conversation on the floor phone?
Oh, I don't think I ever did. I think the only conversations you ever had was just to, maybe make a date or,
So you didn't use the floor phone much?
I did not, no.
Okay. Was it heavily used by other people?
Yes, there were some people, obviously, that were very popular.
So they got the phone calls.
Yeah.
And how did people, when the phone rang, who would go get the phone?
Whoever was closest or had their clothes on or hidden, as the case may be.
Did the phone ring late at night, or did they shut down?
They shut them down. We had quiet hours from 8 to 10, so no. And then I think they maybe let the phones ring from 10 to 11, and then that was it. And I can remember, I think we had to be in the dorm like by 8 o'clock through the week, because when Frances and I worked the PBX, sometimes we had evening hours, and then we would have to ring the doorbell, and the lady would come, let us in, and they would even save our dinners downstairs because Willard wasn't an open cafeteria that first year anyway, and they would put dinner in oven for us.
Was the food good there?
Oh, it was okay. I don't think
just dorm food?
Yeah, just dorm food. Yeah.
But you ate all 3 meals there?
At that point, that was just part of the package deal. Except I think they didn't have anything on Sunday night. I think you had to.
And where would you go on Sunday night?
Probably over to the student union and eat
It was
you could get a cheese sandwich, a grilled cheese sandwich for 15 cents, and a glass of milk, a little carton of milk for 10 cents. So.
Oh gosh. Oh, was there a common shower and restroom area on your floor? Mm-hmm. And how many women shared the facility, and what was that like?
Well, it seemed okay. The toilets were private. We never seemed to have to stand in line. I guess people got up at different times, and it always worked okay. I know we were always urged to wear shower shoes because you didn't want to get what?
Planter's wart or something?
No,
Fungus?
something else. Yeah, athlete's foot.
Athlete, that's right. Athlete's
foot. That was There weren't very many bathtubs. I think there were just a couple of bathtubs in there.
Was it ever a line to get to the showers, like at a particular
I can't
time?
remember any. But I was always kind of out of sync with everybody else. I like to go to bed early. I always have. They're still up playing bridge and so forth, and then I got up early because I always had an 8 o'clock class.
So you talk about different hours. Did people normally stay? Did everybody have to be in bed by a certain time? Lights out.
Well, it was quiet hours after 11. I think you could stay up as long as you wanted to, but they did come in and check your room. That's right. I'd forgotten about that. They had a bed check, and so you had your RA, and she would come
in and check on you. What would happen if you weren't in your room?
Well, I suppose if you weren't in your room, as long as they made sure you were in the dorm, that was okay. Now, if you were missing, that would be a problem.
Do you know what the penalty was, or?
Did you know some people just disappeared, but we didn't know a bunch about that. People didn't talk about things as much back then,
Was Willard considered to be one of the more popular or prestigious hall?
I think Stout was supposed to be the most prestigious hall, yeah.
Okay. And why would you say that?
Well, because it was the newest.
It was the newest.
And it was the closest to Sorority Road.
Okay, so a lot of sorority girls lived in it. Okay.
Yeah.
In your mind, what set Willard apart from the other women halls in the late 1950s, though?
Well, for my choice, it was basically location. It should be easiest to get around because everybody was walking. You didn't have cars or anything. Then I knew that my cousin was there, and she had been there because she was a year older than I. So I just think it was
pretty neat.
Everything sort of came together that Willard would be best.
Well,
I was trying to remember. I think my sister probably lived in Willard. I know she lived up on the 4th floor. She went 1 year to Oklahoma State, and then she got married.
Now, were you both in the dorm at the same time?
No, she was there 2 years before.
2 years. Okay. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the traditions that I've heard about Willard, and let's see if you can remember any of these too. Was there a Willard Beach there at the time you were there?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Some of them have mentioned about going through the second floor window and laying out on the...
Oh, I think they maybe did on the roof of the entry. Yeah, I was not a participant.
You didn't participate in that, huh? What about some of the Christmas traditions? Did they have a tree that you would decorate or sing Christmas carols around a piano?
Yeah, down in the main, and a piano they had down there. So
did somebody lead that? Was there a particular person?
I'm sure there was a dorm head girl or somebody who was responsible for pulling all that together. Yeah.
How about Willard? Was it pretty active on campus? Did it participate in homecoming events and contests? Did the girls come together and do that kind of thing? Was it,
I'm trying to remember.
I know.
I think we must have done a float at one of the homecomings. They were always kind of anticlimactic, Of course, the teams were never any good. They could hardly get people to go to the games.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you recall what happened when someone in the Willard became engaged? Did they have a candlelight or?
Well, certainly, if there was a fraternity involved, they came over and serenaded and so forth. They even did that for pinning. That was kind of the pre-engagement
thing.
Oh, yeah. Other than that, don't remember much. I remember panty raids, which.
Tell us a little bit about those.
I was trying to think why we had panty raids, but I can.
Well, I know there was in 1955, there was, I guess, a very famous panty raid on Willard.
And I can't remember who came or anything, but I can remember being a little frightened and a little stimulated.
What was all that about? Huh? Do you recall any of did you ever see any of the Willard scrapbooks laying around or anybody working on those where you were in the...
Yeah, I think those were down in the main area. Yeah.
Did anybody work on them?
No, I just saw them lying.
Just saw them lying?
I don't remember anybody doing that.
What were the resident hall hours like? I think you mentioned that briefly.
I don't know what the opening was in the early morning, but I just know they closed the doors at 8 o'clock through the week. Now, on the weekend, I believe Saturday night, it may have been 10 or 11, maybe 11.
Okay.
But we had some dances that went pretty late. I mean, must have gone till 12. So maybe you had to have, you had to have told them that you were going to do that. You could also sign out to go to somebody's house. Like I had an aunt in town, and I can remember one party, Phyllis and I asked Aunt Hank if we could come over and stay at her house that night instead of going back to the dorm, and she let
But
us
you had
do
to sign out or
Yeah,
something, letting them
yeah.
know where you were going to be at.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
It was all in loco parentis back then. It is not anymore.
Do you remember if were there any penalties for coming in late past the curfew?
There were, but I don't know what they were. I guess I never.
Didn't have that problem.
I didn't.
Was there a dress code in the hall? Were you allowed to wear jeans or always had to wear a dress?
No, I don't think you had to wear a dress. I think we wore. I have to look at some of those pictures, but I'm sure we wore jeans and shorts and even pajamas,
Yeah.
And I can even remember there was one girl that would go to the phone without any clothes on, or just, a towel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Were the women allowed to come downstairs in the living area in their pajamas?
No, I would say no.
So they always had to be fully clothed before they came downstairs?
I would say that casual stuff was up on the floor. You didn't go to breakfast in your pajamas or anything casual.
Okay. Was there any public display of affection, PDA, which was it considered a serious infraction if it was done in Willard in front of the house or the dorm?
Usually you're saying goodnight to your date right outside the door. I think there was some kissing and so forth. Nothing.
But nobody came out and shooed him away, or?
No, I don't think so. Mm-mm.
Okay. Do you remember anything about the dorm moms?
I'd like to remember her name. I remember that she was the one that told me that, I want to call him Mr. Anderson, but I don't think that's right. The gentleman who was the admissions director had died. She called me.
Told you.
Told me that. In general, it was the RAs up on the floor that handled everything, and the mom was just there to talk to parents or.
They lived in the dorms though, right?
Yes. Okay. She had an apartment right there.
And did you pretty much have the same dorm mom every year, or did they?
Yeah,
was there a high
I think
turnover?
she would. No, I think she was pretty much there most of the time. Yeah.
Okay. What were some of the special hall events and activities that you remember? Like your particular floor, did it do anything a little bit different than maybe the other floors? Did you all have contests between
I think
floors?
we did have some contests, but I'll be darned if I can remember what they were. Yeah, I can kind of remember getting stirred up and wanting to.
Did you all participate in intramural sports?
I did not.
Okay. What do you have anything that really stands out in your mind that a particular party or special event of at least your years in the? Was there a particular party that you had that really stood out that you recall?
Nope.
No. Okay. Were there? You had to work. So was there any tough times for you when you were in Willard?
Not really that I remember. I'm just kind of a routine
Just plugging
sort of
along,
person.
just plugging along person. Okay. Was there any diversity in Willard? Was there any ethnic or international students that lived in the dorms with you all at that time?
Wow, that's a good question. Not any on our floor, except I do remember there was one room at the end of the hall which was a single room. And I can't remember who had it, but I think she was a graduate student or something, but I don't believe she was from another country. But I was very interested, and I joined the Latin American Club. I dated a couple of guys from the Middle East early on, and so there, through the clubs, I think there was more diversity on campus, but not.
Well, tell us some of the other organizations that you were involved in.
Oh, I got in the square dance club for a while because I was reminiscing with Frances. I did see her a couple of spring breaks ago. She came down to Hilton Head. And we had gone to the State Square Dance Festival, if you can imagine how insane that was with these two guys. And I just remember being exhausted, to spend the whole day square dancing. Wow.
Were your dates in the rodeo club?
They were in the Square Dance Club.
They were in the Square Dance Club.
They might have been in the rodeo club too. They were a pair of twins. Can't remember their names or anything else, but they probably were ag majors. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, how funny. So you said though you were in, you did the square dance thing. What other things were?
Square dance, Latin American. I don't think I was in any political, and yet it seems like to me I was, but I can't remember. It would have been some sort of independent student.
What was the campus like? Talking about political, what was the campus like? Let's see, 1955, President Eisenhower was in the office.
But
and it was
everything
before
in
John F.
Oklahoma
Kennedy.
at that time, at least according to my feeling, was Democrat. I mean, everybody in Oklahoma was Democrat. That was one of the things that attracted me to my husband, was we were in the same history class together. He was going for his master's, and I was a senior that year. No, junior. And when I met him the summer after that, and we were discussing politics, I found out he was interested in Republicans, and I said, oh my goodness, I didn't know there was any. And from the rest is history.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but there wasn't a lot of political, when nobody was
Activism.
protesting. Yeah, nobody was protesting at that time, or
No, that was to come.
That was to come. Okay.
I can remember a couple of sort of scandals with Oak Holly, that the Oak Legion wrote some things that maybe they got slapped down for. They were probably the most, journalists have to.
So they were kind of upset with some of the things they wrote.
Yeah.
The administration was.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Were you active in Willard or OSU Women's Resident Hall Association? So
No.
did you hold a hall or floor position?
No, I did not.
You said you worked, but you didn't work in the hall or as in the dorm as a floor assistant or at the front desk. Okay. Okay. Can you kind of tell us why you think these women of Willard have stayed so close through the years and continue to have reunions even 50 years later?
Well, I don't know, because this is my first reunion with them, you see.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's neat. Oh, well, that's interesting.
So some of us have exchanged Christmas cards, but
So it's really a special time then for you.
Yeah.
This is your first time. Well, that's great. But obviously that because you have stayed in contact with them, you have some kind of special bond. And can you explain maybe why you think that is, why you've been able to stay in contact with the people you have?
No, I don't know. I think we were just kind of all the same sort of folks.
Yeah. Well, some people have said that they've expressed that they think it's because they were all from small towns.
Huh.
Some of them said that the 4-H was a big bonding
Okay, and
thing.
I was not in 4-H.
So, but maybe it's just because you all were unique. It was a unique time, and you were up there on that.
I think it
floor.
was a very good time to be in college.
So yeah.
Yeah, later was tougher. Well, the kids had more fun later, I suppose. I don't think they learned as much.
So this is your first reunion that you've
Right.
participated in. Well, congratulations. That is so cool. Since you've been close to OSU campus, you probably remembered when Willard was converted to administrative use.
Well, actually, I suppose I was aware of it. When did that happen?
It doesn't say in here. I don't know. I don't want to say.
Because I left here in '59. We went to Illinois for 4 years. Georgia got his PhD. Then we came back here. He was on the history faculty for 2 years. And then we went to Colorado.
Okay.
So it may have been during that time, I don't know.
Okay, but you do know that it's no longer a dorm.
Okay, you just told me that.
Okay,
so.
it's no longer a dorm. So how do you feel about that? That they no longer continue to use it as a dorm? That it's now used for administrative purposes?
Well, that makes sense. Administrators take over the world.
Okay. Have you seen any of the new resident hall apartments?
No, I haven't.
So you can't have anything to compare to see what it was like?
No, I've seen, residence halls, Michigan State and so forth, but no.
How do those compare to how you see Willard Hall?
Oh my goodness, Michigan State, and this was several years ago, rooms, suites, co-ed. I think that would be much harder. I think it was easier for us. And that may be too why we were good friends.
Because you had to come out of your rooms and meet in the hall, share a bathroom.
Exactly.
Go
you
down.
couldn't just go hide.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about OSU in general and ask you a few questions. And some of it is, let's start off with the new buildings on campus at the time you were in school. Student Union was new. The library was new.
Classroom building was new.
Okay.
Stout Hall was new.
Okay, so did you go to the library a lot?
Oh my, yes, of course.
Okay, tell us a little bit about your use of the library and how that maybe affected your study habits and so forth.
Well, that was probably where I did most of my studying, was in the library.
Was it quiet or crowded?
There was room. It was not, there were a lot of people there. It was always busy. But for instance, you had books that were on reserve, especially for history classes. I usually filled up all my schedule, my, what would you call, optional classes. I took history classes because you could get more credit for them. And I was interested, so that required a lot of time in the library.
What about the Student Union? Did you use it a lot?
Library to the Student Union for a break, then back to the library.
Well, I'm gonna jump back here for a minute, and then I'll go back to where we were. But just can you share some highlights of your life after leaving OSU, and where are you currently living?
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. Left OSU, went to Illinois. My husband got his PhD in history in Illinois, and I taught elementary school at Flossie Wiley Elementary School in Urbana, Illinois. Then upon graduation, we came back to Stillwater. He taught at the university, and I taught at first Jefferson Elementary School and then Lincoln, I believe. Then at that point, we moved to Colorado. He was hired by the history department there. We spent 17, 18 years in Colorado, built a nice house in the mountains, had a son, adopted a daughter, took a not a sabbatical. George had a, I can't think of the name of it, named after the senator from Arkansas.
Rockefeller?
Nope.
Fulbright?
Fulbright appointment to teach in France. So we spent a year in France. Same year my son would have been in first grade, so he went to first grade in France, which was kind of hard for him, but it was lots of fun for us. Yeah, and then came back to Colorado. Then in the early 70s, and then I started teaching in Longmont, Colorado, as the children were both in school. Then we went to Muncie, Indiana. George wanted to try his hand at being an administrator, and he was an administrator for a while, and then he was a history professor again. Then many medical problems, so retired as soon as we could, and built a house in Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Oh, how wonderful.
And moved down there close to my sister, about a half mile, in a beautiful community on golf courses, and we played golf and had a good time until he died.
I'm so sorry. Well, during those years, were you able to get back to Stillwater at all?
Oh yeah, we came back because my Aunt Margaret was here in Stillwater, so we came back 2 or 3 times a year to see her. Yeah, so I've always had a connection with Stillwater, but I haven't done the alumni stuff.
Right.
And after that in Hilton Head, right after my husband died, then my son met this girl from Peru, and they got married. So my sister and I both went down to Peru with them for their Peruvian wedding. We had an American wedding and a Peruvian wedding.
Oh, awesome.
And so we met their family, her family. And
now your children, Amanda, your children aren't OSU graduates.
No, my son went to Michigan State, and my daughter to Ball State.
Okay.
And so anyway, I have since sold my house in Hilton Head and moved to Texas. They asked me to come live with them, so I came and we lived in a little house until we could find the right house to build, and we've built a house together.
Cool. What's it like to come back to Stillwater? Has it changed a lot in the campus, do you think?
Well, I drove up Jardo, and I was amazed at how many new groupings of houses there are, subdivisions or additions or whatever we call them here.
But you haven't been on have you been on campus yet to see all the new constructions?
Not this time.
Well, I hope you get to see it. It's pretty impressive.
Well, I used to drive by. Aunt Margaret was in the north end of Stillwater, so I would drive through the campus, but never really stopped and walked around. So.
Yeah. Okay. What year did you graduate?
59.
In 59. Mm-hmm. And your major again was?
Well, I ended up in elementary education. Yeah.
Okay. President Wilhelm was your president then.
That's correct.
Do you remember anything particular about him that stood out?
No, I don't believe I do. I remember lots of stories about Bennett, and all the magnolia trees, and of course he was big in, I think he got Oklahoma A&M connected to Ethiopia and US Aid, or I don't know what it was.
Well, what I've heard about President Wilhelm is that he tried to learn every student's name, which I was very impressed. I don't know do you remember how large the campus was when you were on?
Oh, it wasn't that big.
Wasn't that big?
No.
So anyway. Were there any classes that you especially remember, or any professors that particularly stand out?
I can remember a Professor Smith.
And what did Professor?
I think she was Ida T. Smith. That's right. My gosh, that just came back to me. She was a professor of elementary education, and she worked too hard.
She worked too hard. What letter grade did you get in her class?
I believe I got an A, but I worked like heck for it. I remember Leroy Fisher. He was a wonderful history teacher, and I took every class he ever taught that I could take. Theodore Agnew, also excellent.
Yes. What were some of the traditions or other important activities of your era that you remember on campus?
Well, I do remember homecoming parades, and we went to most of the football games because your tickets were included with your tuition, you know, and you couldn't go to all the basketball games. There were too many students, so we could go to half of them. I believe that's right. And then we had, they always had like some musical things that, so I can remember jazz and the Philharmonic and some other things like that.
Were you a big Elvis fan?
No.
Didn't like Elvis?
Oh, I did not like him. I just...
That wasn't your... So what did you like to listen to when you were... What was the music you liked to dance to or...
Oh, the 12th of Never. Just old soft. I do remember the bunny hop was popular then.
Okay, all right. And did you go to the dances?
I went to some.
Yeah. What was the popular hangouts on campus and off campus?
Well, as far as I was concerned, there was always a student union. Yeah, there was a place up on the 4th floor where there were booths all around and a dance floor in the middle. And we'd just go and have cokes. And of course, everything was dry then. I mean, I'm sure the campus still is, but then Oklahoma was dry, so you know, not much problem with anything.
Was the Hideaway, did you hear about the Hideaway restaurant when you were
Oh, yes, that opened up in a different place from where it is now because I've been back. But I think that probably opened up my last year, so probably about 58, 59.
So did you eat pizza? Was that your first time to eat pizza?
I believe it was, yes.
Okay.
A little checkered tablecloths.
Yeah. Yes. What do you remember? Was there any controversy? Was there a lot of students upset at the time that Oklahoma A&M changed their name to OSU, Oklahoma State University?
I don't remember anybody being upset about it. Maybe some of the people in the registrar's office because they had to re-stamp all that paper.
Okay.
Speaking of the registrar's office, Leah Shedler, I believe was her name. She was the head. Well, Gerard was the registrar, but she was the one in charge of keeping track of all the grades and signing every one of those transcripts.
A lot of paperwork back then, wasn't it?
They were just, I can remember Raymond Gerard was really big into IBM. I mean, they did those punch cards, you know, running them through those machines, and everybody's sitting around saying, So that was the beginning of that.
Are there any other memories that really stand out that you would like to share with us? Something that you thought about as you were coming to this interview or coming back to Stillwater for this first time reunion with your friends?
Theta Pond.
Theta Pond.
Nice place to walk and hang out.
Did they have the ducks there when you were there?
Yeah. It's a good place to go and neck a little bit.
Did they have the fountain going in it to keep keep
I don't remember that if they did. I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, I'm kind of running out of questions here, so I think the interview's coming to a close unless you have anything. No? I just want to thank you so much for sharing your memories with us. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and thank you so much for coming and spending a little time with us.
Thank you.